Hey guys, this video is going to be different from the normal ones that I do, that it's all fun and games, enjoying the Bahamas and the boat. This is a serious matter. This is about our composting toilet and why we're switching back to a regular marine toilet. In the second video that I ever made, where I take a walkthrough of the boat and I say, here's our composting toilet, it doesn't smell at all. Well, that's a lot. At the time, I was being honest, but the reason why I thought it didn't smell is because we hadn't been on the boat enough to actually use it enough to know that it was gonna smell. So that was, Darla Jean's 4 years old, and when we put her in the water, we originally just had literally a Home Depot bucket where we put the peat moss in, and it definitely smelled because there was no urine diverter. And so we ended up going with, after the first year having the boat, we bought a Sea Head, which I liked the design. It looked very nice in there. It had the separate urine diverter. So basically your pee goes in the front and your number 2 goes into the back to keep it from smelling. And the concept sounded great. I was like, this is gonna work good. But here's the pros and cons of this composting toilet. Some of the pros, I will say, obviously you're not using the electricity to pump out. You're not using water every time you flush, so you save on water. When I use that thing to pee, sometimes I'll use a little shot glass to rinse it out, and that's about it compared to, you know, people pushing down and flushing and using up a bunch of water. Also, there's no, my husband likes to say, little white mice. Sometimes you'll have ladies that come on your boat. The boat before this that we had was a trawler, and if you don't say something, and they'll flush their tampons down, and then it clogs it up, and then you have a very angry husband that's got to go in and fish those out and fix it. So that was definitely one thing, and this is along the same lines. There's no fixing your head in exotic locations. You know, it's like it's pretty foolproof in that concept that there's nothing to get clogged or anything like that. So those are definitely the pros of it. And now I'll get into the cons, which I feel like there's more of for me personally. Number 1, the smell. Everybody says when you have the true composting toilet, it doesn't smell. And I'll say that with your number 2 back there, of course initially when you go, just like on any toilet, it definitely does smell, but we use peat moss in there, and peat moss has a very earthy smell. So, you know, you have that smell to it. It doesn't smell like poop all the time. But the urine goes into the separate container in the front, which is basically, it's just a jug. Like, I had finished some sweet tea from Publix, and I have that. I cleaned the jug and brought it here and used that. Well, when urine is sitting there and it's not being diluted by water or anything, it's obviously gonna smell. So you have to empty that pretty frequently. Another thing I'll say is sometimes if you get poop on like the mechanism in the center, it can smell because it's not getting covered up by the peat moss if you know, bumps on the way down. But all right, one other thing, let's see, dumping it. You know, when you do have to clean it out, the urine, you're basically, you know, you carry this jug up and you're dumping it off the side of the boat when you're out far enough or whatnot. But if you've got people on your boat and, you know, other ladies especially on there, because the guys, they, you know, we're in Florida, they'll just go to the side of the boat and pee off the side of the boat pretty much. You know, they're lucky in that aspect. But if you're not in the water, say we're out there fishing or something like that, and the ladies are using that jug and it starts to get full, I have to walk up, and keep in mind it's clear, you can see through it, it's golden, so I have to walk from the starboard hull up down to the back of the boat, you know, walk through everybody holding their pee to dump it, so it's not the most comfortable thing to do. Alrighty, also one thing that, you know, guys obviously aren't going to talk about composting toilets on their videos, but ladies out there, when it's your time of the month, we know what the toilet looks like after we're done peeing, and if you've got people on your boat and it's either, you know, it's your time or it's not their time, and you're carrying that up, the jug is definitely going to be a different color. Also makes for very uncomfortable dumping the pee jug in front of other people. So there's that. Okay, and explaining how the toilet works to people. This is a big thing. I guess on any boat you have to tell people how to use the head on it, because it's not just like your average toilet at the house where normally it's not where you're flushing. So on this boat, when I take people down there, it's always the ladies. Obviously the guys are, peeing off the boat. So I take the ladies down there, and you have to say, okay, if you're peeing, you aim here. If you have to do a number 2, you need to aim back there. And then there's the toilet paper situation, because on this composting toilet, you don't put toilet paper inside with the peat moss after you wipe, or obviously not down the urine diverter. It's one tiny little hole that goes down there. So it's either, if you're somewhere offshore and you can throw the toilet paper out the window, if you're traveling or something. If not, then you're forced to either put it in a bag to throw away, or you have like a metal canister, you throw it in, you throw a match in there and burn it. So that's something different too that you have to explain to people, is that no, you don't just throw the toilet paper into the hole. And for a lot of people, you're so used to doing that, you don't even think about it. I end up having toilet paper in there if we have people out on the boat sometimes. So let's see. Along with explaining how the head works to people, I will tell you one story. I had people on the boat. They just stopped by for a second. They were on their own boat. I took her down. She had to pee. I thought just pee. She didn't say otherwise. I didn't think otherwise. They left. I go down there, and she had pooped in the handle hole. There's when you have this composting toilet, after you do your number 2, you close the lid, you put the handle in this quarter-size hole, and you turn it so that it mixes up the poop with the peat moss and it keeps it from smelling. Well, this lady thought that that's where you pooped, so I don't know how she managed to aim in a quarter-size hole, but she had tried to poop in there, and then you could tell she tried to clean it. It was an absolute mess. I got down there and just freaked out. I ended up having to get a Phillips and screwdriver, taking the whole thing apart, taking it out back, hosing it off. My husband said he probably would have just thrown it in the dumpster if I hadn't been there, because he would not have touched it. So that was a very extreme incident, but weird stuff happens. All right. Okay, deciding factor, the smoking gun. Here we go, as to why we're switching. When we were on our last trip in the Bahamas, and we were down in a chain of the islands called the Exumas, we went out into the deep side and the Atlantic to do some fishing, and we had to dump the bucket. So I have my sunglasses on, I go out there, and it's windy. He slows down to neutral, I go to the side of the boat, and I'm closing my mouth, I'm squinting my eyes, and I start shaking it, and I feel something come up underneath my sunglasses and hit me right in the eyeball. And I know what it is, because I know what I'm dumping.
I got the poo on me.
You are so pathetic.
So I try not to touch it. I bring it back inside, I wash my hands, and I go and I flush my eye really well to get out whatever piece of peat moss is in there, which I did the best job I could. I was freaking out because we're in the Exumas. We're at an island where there's one nurse that maybe stops by once a week if you're lucky. If not, you'd have to take a boat down to Black Point to try to find the nurse if you had, severe pink eye, some severe eye infection. So the pain was so excruciating that all I could do all day was go downstairs into the bed, keep everything completely dark, and just try to not move my eyeballs because it was so painful. And thankfully the next day it was probably 80% better. I didn't end up having to get medical attention or anything, so I was very lucky. But Mike, my husband, he felt bad about it, and I think that's after that the wheels started turning in his head. All right, we got to get rid of this composting toilet. We're switching over to a regular marine toilet. So I'll show you the picture of that. It was not a fun day at all by any means. So when we got the toilet, they had instructions in there, and one of them was for if you had diarrhea, what you're supposed to do. And it was quite terrifying. It said you need to open it up, take a plastic bag, put it in there in the lining, because when you're doing your number 2, the whole point of it not stinking is that there's no moisture in there. And obviously if you have diarrhea, there's going to be moisture in there. So their solution is to, squeeze your cheeks together, put that liner all in, sit down, and then go in that. So you basically just have to poop in a bag if you had diarrhea, which was a little bit upsetting, I guess, to say, just the thought of doing that whole process. Okay, so this is the sea head right here. I've taken it out. It's empty right now. You can see inside. Oh, that looks gross. Yeah, that's how it looks inside. This is an honest review, guys. Oh, right. So this is when it's inside. That's where the handle goes into when you move it, which I've cleaned fairly thoroughly. This right here, it's just, I'll show you, it's a little basket, just put some stuff in. This is the peat moss we bought after we got back. We just needed a little bit. You can buy this compressed in bulk and it's a lot cheaper, but we were just needing a little bit because we know that we're getting rid of her soon and we're gonna get something different. So, okay, now I will take you down into the hall and show you how this works. Okay, we'll go down in the hall. All right, that's our head. Okay, so hold on, let me show you here. So this is the toilet. It is your little handle here. It goes down like this, and you give it a whirl. And you turn it a bunch of times, and that stirs up your doo-doo in the peat moss so it doesn't smell, supposedly. Alright, so when you open it to use it, got this little cover on it here, and you take that off, and you've got the urine diverter, and then back there. And I will also say that this around here, you can feel it on your bum, and it just it feels awkward, and it takes some getting used to. So like the very first week of a vacation, honestly, it takes a while to get used to that touching you for some reason. Okay, and then when you're emptying it, you lift it up like this. That's the whole thing. This is your pee jug. I wasn't lying. Public sweet tea. I make better sweet tea, but it's alright. So when this is down in here, like this is where you look to see how full it is. So you can see it go up and up and up and up. One thing you can't tell is if it's either completely empty or completely full. It will look exactly the same. So, and this is what I said, it will fill up, pee inside of that whole thing down there because it'll overflow from this, fill this up until it hopefully doesn't reach this and come over here. I've never actually had it spill out of here, thankfully. That'd be a lot of pee. So that's how that whole thing works. And this is what I was talking about also. Say you got people on your boat. Here we go. This is full of pee. Just imagine you're walking all the way out here to dump it. So, not my favorite thing to do. Okay, so on the topic of getting rid of this composting toilet and putting in a regular marine toilet, we obviously have to drill a hole in the hull of the boat to do so that we can pump it out. And we weren't going to haul out this winter because we really don't need bottom paint. So we had been going back and forth as, is it worth paying all that money to haul out, to put a hole in the boat? Well, if anybody knows my husband on this channel, down on the islands they call him Mike Guyver because he's always coming up with something clever idea and how to do things. Whoops, lost you there. So his idea, I guess what we're doing somehow is we're going to use a davit at high tide, try to tie off the starboard hull somehow, and then at low tide he's going to try to drill the hole in it. I will take you along for that process. We have a locker right behind, like up top where our head is, that I think we're going to be able to put a holding tank in. It'll be up higher, so hopefully gravity will be helping when we pump out. But that'll be a whole adventure on its own. So, all right, well, I hope you guys learned something from this. And yeah, I guess that's my opinion on composting toilets and why I can't wait to get a regular one. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.